Welcome to part 4 of this Health and Wellness 360 series. I'm here again with Rob Morrow, and we started in this 4-part series. We started with awareness, we went into a reality check, now we just finished with priorities, and now we're going to go into tools for implementation and developing a plan that will really lead you to an opportunity for positive change. So, Rob, when we think about the plan, how does that look when we just came from priorities and we're developing a plan? How does that transition look?
Well, I think it's a very important step in transition because once we've established our priorities or just code for what's important to us, and if it's important to us, then it's worth working on. Yeah. And I think working on it is really what a plan means. Because so often, I know it's happened to me many, many times in my life, what I really want to change gets left at the doorstep of aspiration. Yeah. And it's something I've identified as an aspiration, but I don't have any plan in place to actually bring it into effect. So I think what we're inviting you in this segment is to think about a plan or plans, tools, if you want to call it that. But basically the goal is this, overall goal, is to identify problems and to make plans to bring about changes that will really have a positive impact on us, ultimately to get us to a point where we're more confident and feel less vulnerable. Yeah. I mean, that's the goal. We just want to feel better by resetting priorities and putting in place how do we actually change it. But that brings us to the how. How do we actually, once we've got our priorities straight, how do we bring about change? Donovan?
So I think, now we're finally at something where we can really think about the positiveness of growth. And when these are things that I do when I work with clients and I do personally when I'm working on different changes that I'm trying to make. And I look at it in different ways. The first thing that I look at is the research. I do some research first, then I look at the resources that I have available to access. I then go into goals. Then we go into the timeline, the schedule. We execute that timeline schedule, and then we reevaluate where we are. So the research and the access, the resources is kind of the people that it's using the internet, it's using whatever resource you feel like you have to achieve that goal. And when we talk about goals, what are some of the things that we really look into, Rob, when we're going into our goals?
Well, I think setting goals is probably more of an art than a science. Yeah. Means different things to different people, but I think there are a couple of things in common that I would suggest when you think about your goals. Is first of all, we all only have a limited amount of time, so I would keep goals. I would make sure that I kind of back tested and said, first of all, is this something important to me? So it has to have an importance, or I wouldn't fool around with it right now. I think you should have only a few goals if they're talking about physical or professional or financial. If the list of goals is too long, you tend not to do it, so I'd keep my list short and crisp. I think it's very important that there's a way you measure it. Yep. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is, but please think about, well, if I say it's important enough to be on this list of goals, then I should have a way to measure it. Whether it's weight loss or more savings or whatever I'm going to do, try to figure a way to measure it. And then I think it's very important to kind of close the back door by putting a time frame. Because if you tend to have a goal without a timeline, it can weaken pretty quickly. So how do you measure success, and do you have a timeline for it, would be two things I would really incorporate into my goal setting.
Definitely. I think weight loss becomes the most common goal that most clients that I've worked with are people that I come in contact with from a professional setting that weight loss is generally one of those things, and setting that goal is important. You say how much weight you want to lose. After you've done the research and you realize that what's the healthy amount that you can lose, what that number is, how much weight you're going to lose per week or per month, whatever that setting is, and then putting that timeline of how often you're going to work out, what you're going to do to change your diet to maybe assist that weight loss goal is kind of a common way, if you look at those settings that I talked about earlier, to execute and then reevaluate once you hit certain standards after a month or after 2 months, reevaluating where you are and seeing if you're on your track.
Right. And that's a wonderful example of a plan versus an aspiration.
Yeah.
An aspiration is, I want to lose weight. Okay? Donovan just described a plan to lose weight.
Yeah.
And that's when you get two hands clapping. You have to start with an aspiration. That's great. But when you put a plan to back it up, then you get what you want.
Yes.
So I just think it's a great example.
Yeah.
Another example I see, we've talked before often through this series of the social dislocation people have.
Yep.
They miss their friends, they miss their comrades, they miss society in general.
Yep.
And so the question is, it's one thing to say, I miss contact with people. A plan would be, I'm going to pick 1 or 2 people a day that I wouldn't otherwise do, and I'm going to pick up the phone and call them or email them. I'm just going to I'm going to have a big outreach plan.
Yep.
And I think you'd be surprised at what comes back.
Yeah.
I haven't heard from you in 20 years. How the hell are you? So that's sort of a simple plan, but nevertheless a plan to increase your socialization.
Exactly. And just taking all those things, that's just kind of recap. So if you take some research, you focus on the resources that you have, you put together the goals that Rob talked about and making sure that they're measured and that you have a timeline with those, and then you execute and then you reevaluate after you get towards the end of that timeline. If you use that system, it's something that we truly believe you can do, and it really helps set your future in a more successful path.
Yep. I think we really encourage you to take this seriously. Actually, we think there's a lot of opportunity for positive change. And in closing, I think one of the things that I would encourage you to do is to approach this with some degree of confidence. These goals and objectives can be small, they can be consistent, and I think you'd be surprised at how powerful they can be if you just apply yourself. So don't be overwhelmed, set the goals, put in place a practice that you do perhaps daily to achieve those. Be patient with yourself, but be fully committed. And I think if you just follow that little template, you're going to be pleasantly surprised at how much progress you make. And Donovan and I would certainly applaud that.
Definitely. And we truly believe, we put this together because we truly believe that this is something you really can do. This is very, if you just take the time, sit down, write those notes out. That's the reason why I wanted you to have the pen and paper or however you take notes, because we know you can do it. And
right.
And we look forward to seeing you next time. And we also will put more information if you want to reach out to Rob, connect with him. If you have any questions and he might be able to help you directly, please do so. So his email and phone and his website will be available at the end of this program.
Good. Well, thank you, and thank everyone who's attended. I think this has been more than we had hoped for.
Yeah.
And we certainly hope that you've enjoyed it and benefited from it. We started it by saying we wanted to be of help and service, and we hope we have.
See you again.
Thank you.